There we go. All right. So welcome back, everyone. We have another legend with us today. This is Colgate Senior Elle O'Brien. And Elle is we actually met a couple years ago when we were actually, the foundation was up giving a talk at Colgate where Elle is now a senior and is now the president of Active Minds. And we also got to reconnect last week through some work that we're doing with the Wellness Center, through the campus. And it was a really, really, honestly, really passion-fueled conversation. And it really allowed us to kind of slow ourselves down and put ourselves in your shoes, which I think is so important because, there's a lot going on in the world right now. And you being a senior, this is obviously not the ideal time to be a senior.
No, no, it's not.
What we wanted to do is we wanted to give Elle a platform to share a little bit about what she's doing, who she is. And I think this is going to be really beneficial to a lot of people because we're going to talk about a lot of interesting things in this. We're keeping it to a half hour as our goal because we know we want to keep everyone's attention spans going. And Elle can do that with her passion. But so what we'll do is, Elle, we'll introduce you first. I'd love for you to tell the world about who you are and what you're doing right now.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here and for our conversation. So my name is Elle. I'm a senior at Colgate, and I'm the president of Active Minds, like you said. So I've been involved in Active Minds since I was a freshman and then moved my way on up to president my senior year, which is exciting. I'm also a member of a sorority. I co-lead a group through our community service office that focuses on supporting survivors of sexual assault and raising awareness on our campus. And then I also work in our Center for Leadership and Student Involvement as a fraternity and sorority affairs intern. So I'm kind of all over the place, stretched a little thin, but I think kind of a lot of people are. So that's kind of where I'm at in my involvements at school. And then, like I said, I'm a senior, so it's definitely a little bit of a weird time right now to be a senior in college and to be kind of thrust and have the bubble of a campus burst so abruptly and sooner than any of us were expecting and many of us were ready for. So back home, I'm from New Jersey, so I'm here with my family, and it's just kind of a learning curve getting all back together under the same roof and kind of figuring out what this means in terms of my life as a student for the foreseeable future, unless I decide at some point to go to grad school is over. My life as a student at Colgate is over, and kind of what the next steps look like. So as I've been settling into life here and thinking about what does it mean to be a senior right now? As I sit in my house, what are my peers thinking about? What are my peers experiencing? Are we all having the same experience of quarantine? Are we all doing the same things, going through the same motions, just 6 feet apart from one another? Are we all going to come out of this being I felt this, and then someone else says I felt something drastically different? So I've just been trying to think about what does community look like right now? Because the sense of community that I was used to experiencing was very rapidly taken away. So how do we still get to show up for one another now, and how do we still get to choose community? So I write a blog, and I actually started the blog when I was a first year at Colgate. And it's just it's ebbed and flowed over the years, but right now it's in a period of growth, which is exciting for me. And I had done this once before when I was a sophomore. I did a kind of community sourced blog where I put a question out. The question was, what gets you out of bed in the morning? And I asked anyone who would want to partake in that article to share their answer to that question. And then I put it out there. And so when I was thinking about how do we what does community look like right now, I thought about doing something similar to that. So I took last week, I took to my Instagram and I asked a series of 22 polls and questions, and then I compiled them into this blog piece. And those questions and polls ranged from kind of just checking in, how's your mental health today, a series of gauging how we're feeling in terms of emotions. So I asked people if you're feeling lonely or stuck or confused. And then on the more positive side, are you feeling inspired or hopeful or safe? So I asked a bunch of that. I asked how people are spending their time, what new things we're trying, what we're learning about ourselves, and then recommendations of what we're all stuck at home. Like, anyone have any good books, good podcasts, like things like that. So there was a whole range, some heavier, some lighter, that I compiled into this blog piece that has been, it feels like that feels like a place where I can find community right now and like feel seen, and just to like know you're not alone in that. So I'd say I biased the pool. A lot of them are seniors in college, a lot of the responses, and a lot of them have connections to Colgate, but not everyone. So I had people across the world responded to these polls. I had people in Morocco fill out these polls, people in Japan. So people kind of all over the place would still fill out these polls. And I had over 200 responses, and people of all ages, but like largely people who are close in my demographic, just because that's who follows me on Instagram. But yeah, so that's what I'm working on right now, to try to feel some sense of like we're in this together, you know?
Well, it's really cool what you did there too, is you literally almost did like a little research project without even intentionally, maybe intentionally, maybe not, but
not intentionally.
Data.
Exactly. I was on the phone with someone the other day, and I was talking to him about it, and he's like, so you should keep doing this. Like, this is really good data. And I was like, I have not ever thought about this as being data or like research, but yeah, I'm a little researcher, I guess. So.
I love that though, because I mean, it's interesting how you describe that too, is you really brought a lot of different people together and asked different questions, because we were just discussing before how different our feelings all are right now, right? Like one day we might be feeling great. The other day we might be feeling like we have to do more, we have to do less, et cetera, et cetera. And I had the opportunity to read this piece, and it was really, really amazing, because not only, you know, I love like the passion, I love just like the way you write, first of all, very comforting, and I feel like you're right there with me when I'm reading. You have a personality while you write.
My hope is that I try to write how I talk, and so it isn't always necessarily punctuated correctly or kind of written very eloquently, but I want it to feel like it's a friend, and not, I think we have enough of like smart people telling us like important things, and like I just kind of want to like sit with you and talk. And so since I can't sit with anyone like right now, like this is how I can do it online. So that's how I write it. But thank you. I'm glad that's how it comes across. So.
Yeah, that's what made it so special, because I felt like I was sitting there right with you reading these, and then all of a sudden you get to these data points, and man, you hit so many different points. And you know, I think there's some that were very inspiring, and some that were, you know, feel maybe pretty sad, you know, and it wasn't a bad sad. It was just like, dang, like, you know, with the loneliness factor, right? I think it was more people, I don't have the exact data in front of me, I think it was like 59% of people felt lonely.
We had, 59% felt lonely.
Yeah.
I actually, so I kind of just above that in the blog piece, so Rupi Kaur, I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing her name right, is a poet, and I have a few of her books, and I follow her on Instagram, and she had posted like around like a week ago, around when I was kind of sitting down and thinking about the kind of questions I wanted to ask, and she had posted one of her little pieces, and it says, the irony of loneliness is that we all feel it at the same time. And so I thought about that, and I was like, that feels especially true right now. Like, I just like that, there's never been a more perfect moment to like when that hits. And so then I took that, and that's why I started with the I feel lonely question, and then I kind of expanded and hit 9 other emotions or feelings. So I just think it shows that like you're not alone, and these are things that we don't necessarily talk about, or that we might not necessarily admit, or that even right now I found myself feeling like guilty experiencing, because I'm like, I have my health, like my family has their health, like if the worst thing right now is that I feel a little lonely, like I shouldn't really complain about that. But I think that's a real feeling, and more of us are feeling it than not, and more of us are feeling it than we realize. And I think it's important to like name that and like to feel that right now. So
what you were doing throughout this post too, and what I was really impressed is you talk about community, right? And you talk about building community. Through that post, you're doing that. You know, you're giving people an opportunity. I mean, not only to just think and to, it's not mindlessly asking questions. It's people sitting there and like actually being in touch with what they might be feeling. You know, do I need to be productive? Do I need to take a break? Do I need to do this? And I mean, I would love to know from your perspective, right? What were some of your favorite, I guess, what were some of your favorite moments about the interactive part of this? And what were some, I think, maybe stats or things or figures from what you saw that really stood out to you that kind of, touched your soul, so to speak?
Yeah. I'll hit on a few of the questions in there, but I'll start with kind of the most heartwarming and honestly surprising things that came out at the end of this was, so I was asking all these questions all week, and I had prefaced at the start of the week, I put out before I said any questions, I said, I'm working on this blog piece and I'm going to be asking all these questions and polls, like, just so you know, like, that's why my Instagram story is going to be like how it is. Like, normally my Instagram story is just like my dog. And so now, like, this is why it's like a change in the program. So I'm like working on this piece. And so I asked all these questions, and I got to like Wednesday or Thursday, and I was on the phone with my friend, and I was like, I hope that I'm not like, because I would see what everyone's responses were, but then like I would see it. And like, I guess if people came back to the questions, they would see it, but they didn't really see all the results until the blog piece went up, Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to her, and she had done like most of the polls, if not all of them. And I said, like, this has been a really, like, this week has me thinking, like, these polls have been awesome. I love seeing what everyone is saying. Like, they've been really comforting for me. Like, I hope I'm not like annoying anyone. Like, I hope, I hope it's not like weird. And plus also, like, you guys haven't seen what it is yet. Like, if you guys are like, this is cool that I'm answering this, but I don't know where it's going. Like, there's a element of trust that was needed there, that like Elle will put this out eventually. And just kind of like that they're contributing to this. And I didn't want it to be annoying or anything. And so then at the end of the week, I said, okay, I'm going to put the blog post up on Tuesday, which is actually when we had spoken last week.
Yeah.
It was just like putting the finishing touches on the piece when we were talking. And so I polled like the next day and just said like, hey, like, what did everyone think about these poll questions? Like, was it annoying? Would you want to do it again? Like, kind of what's the takeaway here? And everyone, that said, not everyone, people who didn't like it probably wouldn't tell me they didn't like it. But I had over 80 people respond to the poll that I asked, and they said, I loved this, like I would do it again. And so I've kind of continued on a lesser intense scale, continuing the questions in the polls, and I'm going to do another one of these blog posts in the coming weeks with another week of like heavier question or like more frequent questions. So I guess just like, it has been surprising to me the amount of people who have told me like, this is really awesome and like really needed. And this is like, I've had people message me like, I look forward to this. Like, you're giving me something, like, I'm so excited when you post one of these. And like, that has just felt very like, what? Like, it's exciting. But definitely unexpected, because I think the entire week I was so worried I was being annoying that I didn't really, and like, I knew that something great was going to come out of it, but I was like, these people are just like answering these questions and like, I don't know.
What I love about it is it gives people an opportunity to connect and to think, but not in a pressure-filled way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like not, hey, answer these questions. No, it's like these are here, and
these are here.
People are looking for that opportunity.
Exactly.
To show
and
out
people, and some people answered every question. Some people only answered some. Some people answered none and just would like check out the answers. And I still got messages from those people that were like, this is like, I'm not answering them, but these are like really important, and I look forward to these. And so that's been really awesome. And as I've continued them through this week, and on a lesser scale. And so I've started to like, until the next blog post comes, I'm asking a question, and then the next day I'm posting the answer right away, so that people aren't like answering a question and then it doesn't show up until 3 weeks. And so that's been really cool, because then people are getting to see like what other people are saying in real time. And so, yes, and we're like creating things together as well. Yesterday, I asked people to send in a song that they've had on loop. And today I posted that like collaborative playlist that we all created together. So you can go and listen to over 2 hours of people's music that it like is getting them through. And like, that's been really cool. So I just think like, it's been awesome, because so often my blog is a space that like, I get to talk about like my experiences and my feelings, and that's like awesome. And I reach a lot of people that way, but to be able to use this in a way to like, where we all get to come and we all get to heal, and like, it's a communal space, like that has been like, and I think in this moment has been particularly important and meaningful to me. And so like, that's just been a really cool thing that like, and unexpected. I didn't really expect for this to kind of take off in this way. but I have conversations like every day, multiple, about these polls. And I'm like, I didn't really think ever that me asking like, hey, do you feel lonely? Like, I didn't ever think like these kind of things would come from that. And so, yeah, so I think like this is a really hard time, but I think there are beautiful things that can come from this moment, where we're all learning what it means to like show up for one another and like be a little bit more honest about where we're at. And maybe that feels easier in this moment when we're like, don't have to see anyone. And we can just like say things and like we don't have to see them look back at us. But I'm just kind of seeing how I can use like social media and my blog to get there and to get that kind of community. So
it's a testament to what can come when you just be yourself, right? You've always been, I mean, you've been in Active Minds, you've been doing a lot of advocacy work for a while now.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful to see it come together in a way where you couldn't have planned it, but it just worked, right?
Yeah.
And I think, we were talking a little bit too about just, stress management techniques and techniques to keep ourselves grounded. And I mean, for you, your writing, I'm sure, is a big, you're writing and communicating. And because the thing about your writing is it's more than just writing, you're community building. Yeah. And then you're turning that into a piece that people can look at and really interact with. And it's like it's like a living, breathing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the point, is for it to feel not just like me. And I think it goes back to like also how I write. Like I don't ever want the blog to feel impersonal or out of touch. I want it to be a place where people can go and like feel seen, and like feel known, because I think I don't want to speak for anyone else, so I can only speak for me. But at the end of the day, that's all I want. Like all I want is to like feel seen and like feel like someone really knows me. And so I think if I can write something in it and someone else can read it and feels even seen like a little bit of them, like then I've done my job, or like kind of what I had hoped to do. And I think like especially that comes through in this, when a lot of the words in this blog piece aren't even mine. Like a lot of them are the quotes directly pulled from what people responded to the different questions. So if people can come here and like see a little bit of themselves, like that just makes me happy, that they, especially right now. And I think for some of these questions more than others, especially like thinking like the what I miss question and like the what I'm worried about question had a lot of the same answers. So even if you can come here and you can see, okay, that's the one I wrote, but then you look like above it and like two below it, and someone's missing something very similar to you, or someone's worried about the same thing you are. And so you can see that like, not only am I with you, but like these other people, they like, you don't even know who they are, but like they're out there, and like that should feel somewhat comforting. So.
And I think you brought that point up too, because being a senior right now, right? And, obviously I'll be very blunt, my heart honestly does break for you guys, because I was talking to you before about this, is going back to my senior year. I remember how special this time was.
Yeah.
I remember it's like you work so hard and it's stripped from you the best part of your college experience.
I know.
Right. And I mean, it's like, we were talking a little bit about grieving, right? And just about, what's been going on. And I mean, with you, right, and with your friends, what has been, I think the most difficult part for you about this whole situation? And then, obviously you've been doing some great stuff to counteract that, but, what has been the most difficult part, and how have you guys been able to adjust and keep that positive mindset going? Because I think it's important that we do grieve at the same time, but also maintaining that positivity and doing what you're doing with the blog and other stuff, makes that better. But I'm just very curious to see,
Yeah, I think like you, I'm heartbroken to like not be finishing the last weeks of my Colgate experience like in Hamilton on Colgate's campus. And I think we're all still like every day, kind of some of us more than others, are mourning the loss of like, okay, like if we were still on campus, like here's what I would be doing, or here's like an event we had. And so there are like big things that we missed, and things that I like had written in my calendar that like now when the date comes, I'm just like, okay, instead I'll be here. And so like that, it's heartbreaking. And but I'll say I miss like the smaller things more than the big things. I find myself missing more like nights when me and my roommates all played board games, more than like bigger events that were coming. So I think like just every day kind of learning to to be okay with the one day I'm okay and the next day I'm a little more sad. And so my roommates and all text all the time that like, okay, like today's really hard for this person, tomorrow will be a little harder for this person, and just kind of like being there and lifting each other up. And then I think with all this, so now that we're all home, you know, like we have less responsibilities in some cases than we did at school. So I have so much more time here because I still have schoolwork and I'm spending a lot of time writing, but all the different, like all those things that I named at the beginning when I introduced myself, like Greek life, active minds, my community service, my job, like I still work my job, but less hours, and my extracurriculars like don't really exist anymore. So we're working on transitioning like new officers, but I have a lot more time because I'm not like doing all of that anymore. And so like, I feel I've been in kind of, and we talked about this a little bit before, like, how do I use this time to be, like, how am I using this time given that I'm like mourning and kind of healing and grieving through all of this. But then also like not getting too focused on like, I'm so sad and like, I miss Colgate, and like being able to stay positive. And so I when we were speaking before, I mentioned kind of like these two sides I feel pulled between. So like on the one hand, I hear us like not being able to deal with the separation from hustle culture. So I think we're a society that really places so much value on being productive and getting things done, and like the hustle and the grind, and like getting up early and like working, and like, here's all the great things I accomplished. And so like now we don't necessarily have that. And if we're still doing work, like you can't really see it because you're just like at home. And so I hear that, and I hear like, okay, if we can't do that, like now's the time to get everything that you didn't normally have time for done. And so like now's the time to like get really creative and like do all these new things and try these new things and like check off all those things on your to-do list that you thought you'd never have time for, and read every book on your bookshelf. And I'm like, okay, like like a little bit maybe that it would be good if you wanted to like pick up that book that you really wanted to finish, or like kind of start thinking about a new project. But I think the heightened pressure of like that now's the time that you're going to be your most creative, like that is not when you're going to be most creative, when you're putting pressure on yourself to be creative. And then also in this time when we're all just kind of living in the heightened anxiety of this moment, and like the heightened uncertainty and the fear and the like the worry of when are we gonna all be able to like go out again, and like when is school gonna pick back up, and when is my job gonna pick back up, like that also will not help. Like that stress will come into your work, and so like you're not going to be that creative. And so, but then I also hear, so that's like the one side, the like kind of be productive, either like keep hustling or like start something new, like don't waste this time. And I think I fall more on this other side of like, this is a moment to take a pause and like to be able to just focus on like breathing through it. And I think we've all at some point been like, oh, I just wish like today I could just stay home. Like I wish like today I could just like have a day where I didn't have to do anything and I had like no responsibilities, or like if like the like joy we get from like canceled plans of like, oh, I have like another like few hours in my life, and like now we have it and we're so eager to fill it that like we've lost the ability to like be with ourselves. And so I think, but then I hear like the extreme of that is like, don't waste all your time like watching Netflix. And I think we have to find and be okay with like being somewhere in the middle, with being like, I don't know that like being in bed and watching Netflix and like just kind of vegging out is the healthiest way to be in this moment. I think it's helpful some days. Like, yes, like some days, if that's like what you want to do and what you need to do, like do that. But like not every day. I don't think like that's the healthiest. And I also don't think it's the healthiest to like be hyper productive and have all that pressure. And I think we need like, and I touch on that because that was one of the questions that I asked in this blog piece was, is now the time to do more things or to do less things? And we were pretty split. And I think that there's a happier medium. But I guess I want to both push back against the hustle culture and like the need to bring that into this moment, and like advocate for taking things slower and being okay with that, to a certain extent. And I think there's a middle ground there. I don't necessarily know if we found it. I don't know if I found it. But I think it's there and it exists. And none of us know like how to really be right now. And like, this is unprecedented, like at least in my lifetime, like I have never lived through anything like this. And so, like give yourself some grace to like figuring out how to be right now. But like try to, I don't know, just like breathe through it and like take it as a pause. Like we've all wanted to have more time. Like we used to be so busy, we couldn't like drink water. And like now it's like, I need to overschedule myself at home. And like, that's not healthy. So I'm trying to figure out that middle ground. Clearly my head's a little all over the place with it still, but there's things I'm thinking about and things that I think are important for all of us to be thinking about right now. So
that's the beauty of it, though. It's okay that your head's all over the place with it. and I'll be honest with you, I am so in your corner with this middle ground because I'll be honest, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I tend to fall way too much into that hustle culture, and it has hurt me in ways I didn't realize it hurt me. All I'm seeing is, the foundation's doing well. This is doing this. You're helping a lot of people, but then I get lost in this fact of, oh my God, but what am I doing for myself? And then I fall into really negative thinking at times.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that when you're able to take a step back, right, and to slow down some days and to not do a million things and to not put pressure on yourself to be creative, you start getting creative. And then all of a sudden I'll be working out, I'll taking a walk, and I'll have this incredible idea. And then I'll be able to find the time to do that idea because I was slowing down, but I wasn't moving like a snail. I was kind of just like, like almost like a lion in a sense.
Yeah.
Moving around and then pouncing when I need to pounce. And I think that's something that's really intriguing. I love the fact that you bring that up because you don't want to, I completely agree. You don't want to be just sitting there doing nothing. You don't want to be sitting there doing a million things because that's not good for us. And it hasn't been good for us.
Yeah.
You find that middle ground, you're able to use that in every aspect of life too, when things do get back to normal.
Exactly. And I think if we don't give ourselves time now to like really sit and process like what this moment means for us, like if I don't give myself time now to like be like, okay, like let me like feel all the feelings about missing the last like 6 weeks of being on campus senior year. Like it's going to hit me at some point. And so like, I should just take the time right now to like sit with that and like tend to myself and like take care of me so that I can like show up and be like more present and not like living in my past, like mourningness. So yeah, we need to feel it. And sometimes that's going to take all day or a couple days where you just like, you're not going to get work done, but you don't need to get that much work done, but like trying to find this middle ground of doing kind of not more things, not less things, or not drastically less things. I think if I had to participate in that pool myself, I would say do less things, but still be doing something.
Me too.
So
right there with you. It's so funny. Literally, it's almost like it's the exact mindset because, I think it's so important. And I've learned this as I've gotten older is processing emotions. So when I was about, I was always pretty vulnerable with certain things, but there are so many things that I didn't process from like age 21 to like 28. And I really started really processing emotions in a better way the last couple of years. And it's helped so much for my own mental health. And it's helped so much for me, during this whole time is because instead of panicking, I remember the first thing I did during this was I was like, wow, this is like nice. And I felt guilty at first saying that because obviously with everything going on in the world, you're like, oh, how could something be nice? And then the OC,
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you're able to process these things. You're able to start seeing what you can do and you start to see what you really do enjoy doing and what needs to be done rather than, oh, I have to do this. And that's such a trap. And that is a trap that has hurt me for a long, long time.
Exactly. I think this moment just gives us time to like learn to be with ourselves and just time to pause and like just slow things down more. And obviously I would go back to before all of this happened if I could. And like, I would rather not have this moment like be happening at all, because like people are losing their lives and losing their loved ones. But this is the reality. And so I think to like hustle through it or like work on something you're making through it isn't necessarily like the best way to spend it. And I think people are eager to not be wasting this time. But I think we need to think about like breathing is like not a waste. Like taking time to like sit here and like feel is not a waste of your time. You're just like finally showing up for yourself and like finally like feeling it all. And so I think often one of my favorite books is written by a founder of a nonprofit very similar to yours. It's Jamie Torkowski's book. He's the founder of To Write Love in Our Arms, and he wrote the book If You Feel Too Much, and that title has always hit me because I feel like I feel too much always. And I think this is a moment where all of us are feeling too much a lot. And so like learning to be with that is good. And like if you can learn to kind of care for yourself more through this moment, like then you were productive, so.
And that is so important, that breathe. That's one of the best points I've honestly heard throughout this whole quarantine is that allowing yourself to slow down, allowing yourself to breathe and to feel is not a waste. Doing nothing is not a waste, believe it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
It allows us to really understand what we want, what we need. And I'm so glad you brought that up because a lot of college students, I think especially, and high school students really need to hear that because it is a hustle culture and that is not a good thing. That's just the way it's become, and, when our parents were in college, it was, yes, people still worked hard, but it was different, it was different. And I think that's just a great point that you make right there.
Thank you. Yeah. And thinking about like how that point feels to me as a college senior and how it might feel to other seniors where like, you hustled a lot and then like the spring was like kind of gonna be a little bit more fun. Not that the rest of college wasn't fun, but senior spring I think is just a little bit different. Yeah. And then like preparing to go into the workforce where now like there is so much uncertainty about those plans, and still even like for those who have plans, like how those plans are changing or might change, or the possibility of what do those offers still look like. And then for others like myself who don't have like secure jobs lined up, like how do like the process of like applications right now is like I'm like sending in things and I'm like, you're not going to answer me, like, because it's just like that's not and shouldn't be the priority right now. And so like just thinking about how we were in this period of transition from one busy environment to like our next busy environment, like from college to work. And that just looks different now. And I think we have time now to imagine what it looks like to not be so busy all the time and think about how do you want to take that after we get into quarantine? Like, what do you want your like work-life balance to be after this? And I just like, I'm thinking a little bit about that too. So.
That's a very powerful perspective right there too, because you start thinking about the workforce and all that's just it's almost like don't even add added pressure to yourself, right?
Exactly.
Is like you said, I mean, just everyone is in this crazy boat right now. It's like we just have to breathe, take it day by day. And your perspective is when the time is right, it's going to be okay, then you get the job, then you move forward. I mean, and it's so unfortunate because when I was your age, it was like, oh, use the summer to enjoy and to relax and don't worry about the job yet. Now that takes a whole new meaning, right?
Exactly.
Don't put pressure on yourself to find a job or to do that. It's take some time to, okay, the state of the world is very different right now. Don't put that added pressure on yourself. And that perspective is so powerful.
And I think just like, and kind of like looping it back a little bit to the blog, like I think about what feels most important to spend my time on right now. So like every morning I write my like to-do list because I can't function without my little list of things. And I have it's right behind you in my room. And so I have like my creative things that I'm focusing on and kind of like how am I checking in with people, or like I haven't reached out to this person in a while, like let me shoot them a text, that's all on there. And then I also have like schoolwork and like job application things. And like, I find that the creative work and the work of like investing back into community always gets done first, because that just feels what's actually important right now. Like my readings will happen when my readings happen. Like right now I need to like kind of show up for everyone, which is like the hope of the blog, and the hope of like the polls that I'm continuing to do. And that's kind of just what I feel I should be doing right now, is just kind of like checking in with everyone. And so I think about like what will feel important after this, but also like what feels most important right now. And if it's not your readings, hopefully teachers are understanding. But if it's not your readings, if it's not your job apps, if it's just kind of like checking in with yourself or checking in with your grandparents or your friends who you can't see right now, like that should be the priority, in my opinion. So yeah.
This is why that mindset's going to take you very far in life.
Thank you.
It's a very mature way, and it's a very holistic way of thinking that we often tend to ignore by this hustle culture.
Thank you.
And I think the final thing I'll ask, is there anything else that you want to add? Any other messages that you want to put out before we wrap this awesome conversation up?
I would just say, like, I didn't, and I mentioned this before, like, I never expected the polls or the questions or this piece to be so appreciated. And I think right now, little things go so far. And you don't need to have a blog or put these answers anywhere to, like, have a reason to, like, check in with people. You know, like, these are questions, the questions that I ask here, the questions that I'm continuing to ask on my Instagram, like, those are questions we can all ask each other every day and, like, check in. And so right now, like, that is just so important to keep checking in with one another. And even after this, like, these are questions not as like forwardly, but indirectly, that I talk about on the blog, like, that I have talked about on the blog for the past 4 years. Like, what does it mean to live honestly and to live vulnerably and to, like, show up, like, as your full self and kind of be true to who you are and, like, open about what you've been through. And right now we're all going through it. So, like, just kind of don't be afraid to check in with other people and to ask, like, potentially hard questions. They can say no if they don't want to answer, but at least, like, you know, you showed up and, you know, like, you tried to be there, because people will remember that, and it will affect more people than you would have ever imagined. And, like, all of us have that power. And I think in this moment, that responsibility to be doing this kind of work and having these kind of conversations. So I think, like, that is my parting advice and my parting, like, plea with you all to choose community right now. It feels hard because you can't be there in person, but, like, community right now is still possible. And I just hope we, like, don't forget that. So
thank you so much. That's an amazing reminder too for everyone out there, myself, for everyone else listening. That's a beautiful mindset. And that's, again, thank you for taking the time to do this. I think this is really with so many people, and we're going to continue to build that community together.
Yeah, no, I loved this conversation. So thank you so much again for having me on. This has been every time I talk about these things, I talk about the same things, but I'm thinking about them in new ways. And so I'm just happy to be here and to be part of this community you're building and the JCK Foundation is building, and just happy to be a part of it. So thank you.